millions of dollars is this guy going to make in the offseason?
Well, our dad joke counter can move up to 1 now for today's show.
It's
there
been
a
it is.
while. Like 2 weeks ago was just morbid. Last week we were borderline yelling at each other, and now we're dropping dad jokes about Davis Bertans, who's been all over the league already. And hard to believe he's drafted 6 years ago, but
he is a crazy shooter too. There was a clip I saw of just like a bunch of the threes he made this year, just insane. The shots he was taking and making this year. So we'll see. He's definitely going to get paid. I'm just really curious to see, Jason, if we get anyone of significance who sits out. I think that's going to be one of the biggest questions. I mean, do you predict that anyone big will sit out, or do you think we'll mostly just get kind of fringe guys?
I don't know. Like, I just wonder, like, this week's focused on coronavirus. The next week could be back to everything going on with, social reform. So I don't know. I really have no idea. I mean, the biggest name was probably Kyrie Irving, because I think if he were healthy, he'd probably be sitting out just to prove a point. But I think Durant would be like, no, get over here, and he'd go. If both of them were ready to play, which I do think, I said this last week, they are healthy. I just think they're wise to be sitting out.
Yeah, I'm inclined to say I don't think we're going to see any major players. But at any rate, with that kind of in mind, we do have a couple guys coming out. But there's another story that just felt like we have to kind of touch on it, because just today it looks like we will have some other sports joining basketball potentially. So the MLB Players Union and Major League Baseball have been arguing over baseball for a while. And I mean, anyone who follows sports has seen this, because it's been right at the top of kind of every sports headline as they try to get through here. And it looks like it's coming back, Jason. I mean, at this point, it appears that we will see baseball return. Players are expected to report to camps by July 1st. They're going to do about 3 weeks of training camp. And then, Jason, it's straight to baseball, a 60-game season.
Were you expecting me to yell play ball like an umpire?
What'd you say?
Were you expecting me to yell play ball? Because you gave me a little pause there, and I didn't know what you wanted me to do.
I wanted you to take me out to the ball game. Anyways, we're back to baseball, Jason, and there's a few reasons I want to talk about this, but the first is just, I mean, it's been sort of amazing to watch, and it makes you wonder if this could be a sign of things to come for the NBA. And I'm curious what your takeaways have been from baseball's long here, multiple month fight over coming back, and what you make of the final decision to return.
So we thought the NBA was the most organized sport, how they got a plan together. You mentioned before the show with hockey, the NHL announced who the playoff teams were, and then basically just haven't mentioned anything since. The NFL, I think, is in a safe place because they have some time. I think they're still ironing out the kinks there because there's about another month before our training camp is supposed to resume. So the focus has really been on how well the NBA is put back together and how poorly Rob Manfred and the MLB looked for not being able to get a season together. They argued for weeks and finally agreed on a 60-game season. I mean, I'm excited. I think baseball, because of how big the stadiums are, and I know it's a larger roster, but I think they'll be able to pull it off in an empty stadium, which is going to look totally weird. But I'm happy because I do think, though, there are racial injustices in Major League Baseball as well, and, of course, the coronavirus fear. So it's just as documented in the MLB as it is in the NBA. I mean, one of the most prominent athletes in Major League Baseball is Tim Anderson, who is African-American, and I'm sure he'll be on the forefront trying to use his platform to create change and social reform for the African-American community. And he already is. He's very well respected amongst his peers in the city of Chicago, playing for a very improved White Sox team. It's going to be interesting because 60 games, right? You see teams over the course of an 162-game season get hot, come into the All-Star break, holding a playoff spot, and only to falter down the stretch. So the fact that there is only 60 games in the usual 10 playoff teams we could see some surprise teams make a playoff push. You could have an older veteran contender that's off to a slower start. I mean, the level of competition is going to be extremely fierce in such a short amount of games. It's going to be very compelling to watch. But then you also have the other side of the coin where will some players sit out due to coronavirus fears? So once again, we're not going to see a normal sports world for a very long time, regardless of whatever sport we are talking about. It's just good that they finally were able to strike a deal, the owners, the players, the league. It's positive, but again, when the NBA decided it was coming back a month ago, there's still hurdles to climb. And now that baseball just a day or so ago decided they were coming back, now those hurdles and those stories are going to start to come out as well.
Yeah, and so, I mean, it's all kind of coming all at once because now, breaking news here on Baseline Jumper, the NHL is down to 6 cities. Pittsburgh, my heart, and Dallas just got crossed off the list along with Columbus, so now it's down to Vegas, Chicago, Los Angeles, Toronto, Edmonton, and Vancouver. And likely, you're going to see, more likely than not, if it's Canada, it'll be 2 in Canada, and allegedly Vegas is the favorite. So, while this is going on now, everything's kind of rolling. I'm just really interested to see what we watched in baseball was 2 groups that could not agree at all. And when you look at the final agreement of what's been reported, Jason, what they've basically done is said, we're not changing anything. They made no progress. I mean, let's kind of call a spade here. There was no progress made. Ultimately, they got the bare minimum, basically, because they argued for so long that they ended up with only being able to do 60 games. And the worst case scenario was 50 games. And it makes you wonder if we're going to be able to have labor peace. We've had it for a while now in sports. We had that shortened season in basketball a few years ago. But we've been relatively calm, and it could be portending some bad things, but it also, as you alluded to, I think shone a light onto how relatively conflict-free the NBA process has been and how well organized it's been, to where, these other sports are still working out the protocols. They're still trying to figure this out, and this is somewhere the NBA has already been. They've gotten the runway. They have a schedule in place. And frankly, the players and owners didn't go crazy about it. And I think it's a good sign for the NBA, and I'm hopeful. I think one of the things we're going to have to really keep an eye on is what this will mean after this season, this coming season. There's going to be there's going to be some issues even for this season coming at the end of this year. What we're going to be able to get to agree to, especially if Corona's still going. So there's a lot up in the air.
Coronavirus ain't going away for a while, buddy. There is a lot up in the air. Can I tell you the one beneficiary, and this is just the gambler in me?
Amazon?
Daily fantasy sports is going to be off the charts when baseball does come back. Even the NBA too, just because I know fantasy basketball isn't as popular as baseball and football, but I'm in 4 fantasy baseball leagues, right? And now that it's coming back, we're starting to talk what do we do? Do we do it for money? Do we do roto? Do we do head-to-head? And I'm just I'd rather just play daily fantasy because it's going to be so compelling. There's going to be a switch in the divisions this year to limit travel. You're going to see, we'll make a New York to Pennsylvania reference. I think the Yankees, Mets, and Pirates will be seeing each other a lot just because it's a 5-hour bus ride. If you don't want to put these guys on a charter plane and run the risk of infection, put them on a bus. Between Philly, Pittsburgh, New York, Baltimore, Boston, Toronto, right there, you have a cluster of teams in that region coming from 2-3 different divisions. So it's going to be pretty interesting. But daily fantasy, I think that industry, along with online gaming, is going to be through the roof once games actually resume. Because I'm getting free bet offers, bet on this cricket match. And I'm just no, I really don't want to. But fantasy baseball, go the daily route. I'll suggest the same for basketball too.
Yeah, I mean, I we'll see. I'm not a big daily fantasy guy, but maybe I'll get myself involved. I will say, I think for baseball, there's going to be I would not put an asterisk on the basketball season. It's hard not to think there's going to be a bit of an asterisk on the baseball season, given.
Wait, is daily fantasy legal in Pennsylvania?
Yeah, you can do daily fantasy here for sure.
So you could do like DraftKings or FanDuel or.
Yep, absolutely. So I don't know. At the end of the day, from a sports perspective, I do think that the baseball announcement is great for the game of baseball. Two things are: one, there's got to be an asterisk on this baseball season. I mean, you're going to have teams playing what? I mean, you're going to have what, 3 rounds? How many rounds of players you have? So you're going to have the divisional, the championship, and then the World Series.
The
So you could end up playing.
The playoff structure doesn't change.
I know, but what I'm thinking is you're going to play what? You could play up to theoretically like 20 games in the postseason. A team could, which is a third of the regular season then. So that's kind of insane when you think about that. Like how many games these teams are going to end up playing in the postseason. I mean, it's just going to be, a team. This is like, I mean, you have teams go on 10, 15 game hot streaks. Yeah. If that happens here, that team's pretty much all set. I mean, all they have to do is play 500 the rest of the season and they're in. And it's going to significantly devalue during the regular season the best pitchers, because the best pitchers are probably only going to pitch 10 games, 12 games.
And I also think that we're going to see different strategies as far as like, putting your 2 best pitchers in the same game for 3 innings each and then going to the bullpen. That was one of the things I saw today.
Yeah.
It's gonna be interesting. I mean, look at the Nationals, last year's World Series champions. They were terrible at the All-Star break, not even in the playoff hunt. So, if you're the Yankees or the Astros even, who are, the MLB villains, let's not forget about the sign stealing scandal. Luckily there'll be no fans in the stands. So
lucky for them, yeah.
Yeah, lucky for them. The booing will be through TVs or maybe outside the ballpark if you're really feeling frisky.
And I think there's one other big thing that this brings up, Jason, though, is for the first time in our lives, and probably the last time in our lives, there are more, I mean, there's almost certainly, there's almost no universe this doesn't happen. We're going to have a period of time where there's baseball, hockey, football, and basketball all going on at the same time. Because the NFL season, I mean, maybe you won't have football. At the very least, baseball is going to be going up against basketball and hockey at the same time.
Well, we have that every October in a normal world, right? You have hockey getting underway, basketball getting underway, the World Series, and the NFL season. So it might just be for a longer stretch of time than what we're used to. But then again, like, we don't know if we're ever going to have normal again. This is what our lives are going to be like until they get a vaccine for COVID-19. And who knows when that's going to be. And then the ban for that vaccine. I mean, we're lucky we're even getting 60 games or a bubble in Orlando or being able to watch an empty football stadium or hockey arena on television. I mean, they are doing so much just to get these players back on the court, for them as a distraction, for entertainment purposes. I mean, I'm not even affected by this quarantine anymore because it's just the new normal. Like, I'm so used to walking into a store and needing my mask, right? I drive for DoorDash in my spare time. That mask, like, I look for that before I look for my wallet now. It's just the way the world has changed. And, sports are adapting to it as well as they can right now. Just like you and I and our families as human beings, we're doing the exact same thing.
Absolutely. And that new normal is something we're all going to get used to. Baseball included. No fans, but a season's coming. Basketball is around the corner. And we'll really get to see now, Jason, I think, how these leagues kind of stack up. We've talked about the MLB and the NBA, NFL. We've talked about how the NBA relates to all these other leagues. Now, all of these leagues are going to be right up against each other. You're going to have meaningful games in all of these coming at the same time. And we're really going to get to watch and see how viewers watch these games, how they consume them, what they think. And we're all going to have to get used to that new normal that you referenced. So, I think that's it for today. But we do want to remind all you guys to stay safe. But if you can, if you have a couple extra seconds in between staying safe, please remember to subscribe, rate, and review.
5 stars if you want. But Ben, I mean, I still had a couple tidbits. You trying to leave me already?
Oh my goodness. Did I blackball you here, Jason? Did I knock you out of your zone here?
You did, but so in the early stages of Baseline Jumper, we used to have a segment called Heroes